At Ritual, we know what goes into the holiday season: the potluck planning, the gift giving, the spreadsheets. So this new year, take a moment for yourself with science-backed support that puts you first. So whether you're focusing on supporting foundational health with a clean vegan multivitamin or supporting your gut health with Symbiotic Plus, do it with 30% off your first month at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? If you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. Choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 103. How Improv helps you with self-mastery. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode. I am so happy you're here today. I hope all is well with you and your world. How is your EMF exposure? Have you thought a little bit more about putting a little more distance between you and your electronic devices, or turning off your Wi-Fi at night, or not holding your phone up to your ear while you talk? That invisible low-level stress can be sneakily adding to the stress your body is under. You can probably handle it, but it makes you a little bit less ready to handle bigger stressors that might come along someday. So if you can make a couple of easy tweaks to make yourself harder to weaken, why not? Hopefully you downloaded your free EMF resource guide if you want more ideas, products, or information. You can get that on my website, www.healthcouragecollective.com. Alrighty, today we're going to talk about improv. How do you feel about improv? I remember when I was a teenager / young adult, we would sometimes like to go to improv shows, and I loved them. I think it was called Wise Guys Comedy Club or something. I thought it was so fun, and I loved that you could yell out your ideas and they would become a part of the show for the night. Then that show, Whose Line Is It Anyway, came on TV, and that was fun too. For me personally, I don't mind speaking in front of a group or on a pre-recorded podcast, but having to just think on my feet and come up with stuff on the fly, even in small personal conversations, can be terrifying. I've always thought of the ability to be witty as the ultimate mark of intelligence. I so admire people whose minds work fast and they're able to quickly make connections and express themselves with skill. Because of the long list of benefits, it became pretty self-evident to me over the years that I really needed to enroll in an improv class. It was scary and intimidating and really fun, and I'm so glad I did it. If you've been thinking about doing an improv class, just sign up already. My class was 6 weeks long, and I would love to share a few things I learned that I think can help you up-level your life as you walk this journey toward more self-mastery. I guess if I had mastered the art of improv, I would be able to just spout off a bunch of extemporaneous stuff and trust that it would be gold. But I didn't get that far in 6 weeks, so I came prepared today. There are so many life lessons that improv can teach you, so we'll just pick a few. If you were to ask any improviser the main principle of improv, they would tell you it's yes and. Whenever you're in a scene and someone says something, your only job is to respond with some form of yes and. There are exercises to learn to get better at this, which I appreciated, but the point is to always accept what your scene partner offers and then add something to it. At the beginning, you're typically just setting up the scene, or the base reality, this it's called. Each of you has to make an offer, and the other person needs to accept the offer and add something new. So when I was standing up there on the stage and my scene partner came up to me and said, "Hello, Sister Rosemary," my only job was to metaphorically say yes. Yes, I am now Sister Rosemary. And then I add something of my own. The exercise we were doing was called Who, What, Where, so I think I said something like, "Hello, my child. What brings you to my holy office hours this afternoon?" Yes and is critical for improv for a ton of reasons. It makes your scene partner look good. It helps all of you on stage work together as a team. It gives you absolute trust in your scene partners/teammates, and it moves the scene forward. If somebody doesn't yes and you, it's called a block. A block can obviously be a no. "Hello, Sister Rosemary." "Who's Sister Rosemary?" "I'm your dentist, Dr. Anderson." That's a block. So too would be yes, but. Seems kind of like yes and, but it's not. I think this would happen more out in the wild than on stage in an improv show, but it could be either. We should set up a team building beach volleyball activity next weekend. It would be so fun to get together outside of work and have a chance to relax together in the outdoors and get to know one another better. Yes, beach volleyball is fun, but it might rain and Stu doesn't like taking his shoes off. Yes, but. It also blocks forward momentum. The last would be yes without the and. "Hello, Sister Rosemary." "Hello." It doesn't feel like a blatant block, but it prevents the scene from moving forward and it puts all of the burden on the other person to do all the work. Yes and is a reliable pathway to creativity. One of the funnest exercises we did in my improv class was called, I don't remember what it was called, but it was like a speed dating, but for yes and. So you had a partner and you had 2 minutes or whatever the time was, and the person on the north side of the room would have to say some kind of crazy idea. The less you actually believed in that idea, the better. And then the other person had to yes and your idea, and you would riff off each other together. It was so funny. Then you'd move down the line to switch partners, and the person on the south side had to say some kind of crazy idea, and the other person had to yes and it. Over the course of 10 to 20 minutes, I had collaboratively determined that everyone in the world should wear uniforms consisting of pink tops and cow print leggings. Disneyland should be moved to Poland. Skateboards should be the only mode of transportation on Earth. All white-collar jobs should be eliminated. Medicaid should only cover treatments with essential oils. And the funniest part of the night was when our teacher said, "Okay, make sure this one is something that you definitely do not believe." And my new scene partner looked me right in the eyes with a completely straight face and said, "I think all fat people should be executed." Oh my gosh, I could not match his straight face because we both knew it was like the worst idea ever. We were being ridiculous in this exercise on purpose, but knowing you can trust your partner to accept and build on whatever you say opens up huge possibilities for creativity. My first ideas with my partners weren't as outlandish as the later ones got, because feeling that yes-anding repeatedly opens up your mind to new ideas that weren't previously even available. We all tend to censor ourselves, which we should watch ourselves to never be intentionally offensive or discriminatory, but we censor all our weird ideas, and doing so can cut off our creativity. When our weird ideas aren't immediately shut down by ourselves or our teammates, we start seeing possibilities everywhere. Inspiration becomes less elusive. That spark of creativity comes around more and more often. It starts to come to us, instead of us desperately scouring the world to try to uncover it. Unexpected connections are what lead to innovation. The world becomes alive with possibilities, but you simultaneously have no expectation to get anywhere. Hey, I just wanted to quickly interrupt and say good for you for being here listening to a podcast about improving your biological age relative to your chronological age. Have you ever thought about slowing the biological aging of your skin? If you heard my episode 55 about senescent cells, then you know that the accumulation of these undead cells accelerates all of the problems of aging. Well, now there's a topical supplement you can put on your skin that reduces the accumulation of senescent cells in your skin. This reduces wrinkles, but also all other skin conditions caused by thinner, weaker, drier skin. It also reduces the formation of age spots and increases collagen and hyaluronic acid production within your skin. It's a peptide called OS01, and it's in a product called OneSkin. I use it every day on my face and neck, and I've noticed a big difference. I would say my skin is more moisturized, but that's not a good enough description because it's not like when you put moisturizer on, but your skin is still dry underneath. It's the exact opposite. The topical supplement isn't greasy at all, but my skin is plumper and healthier from the inside out. I'm a big fan. If OneSkin sounds like something you'd like to try, there's a link in the show notes to get you $20 off. All right, back to the episode. A few studies from the journal Thinking Skills and Creativity show that improv is a rich, creative experience that is powerfully satisfying to the brain, which feasts on the activity and joy of discovering moments and scenes that range from wildly comic to wonderfully compelling. Innovation and creativity make our life better, and yes, and helps us get there, both individually and as a group or team. It gets us on the same page. It's what moves us forward in our scene and in our work project and our whole life. Plus, it feels good. It builds trust between the teammates. It feels good to express the weirdness inside of you and be heard and validated and collaborated with. And it's powerfully satisfying to the brain to have moments of discovery. Yes, and is awesome. It's a powerful way to move things forward, to innovate while making other people feel good. But what would the world be like if we all said yes to everything? I've never seen the movie Yes Day, but I love Jennifer Garner, so someday I'll get around to it. We can't have every day be a yes day, or really horrible things would start to happen. I love how famous improviser Norm Laviolette puts it. He says, yes and should be your default rule in the ideation phase. Get used to allowing creativity to flow and not shooting down ideas before they've been heard out and built upon. Once you get to the execution phase in real life, there are definitely things that need to be said no to. We know what these are. We don't need a lesson in saying no. We must be prudent and reasonable in all of our real life actions. But those actions might actually be better if we start out in an ideation phase with more yeses. Something I heard from Kelly Leonard, who wrote a book called Yes and, was that in a situation in real life where you can't say yes and, his research has found that the scientifically validated ideal substitution is thank you because. He gave an example where he said he and his wife had very strong vaccine opinions, and his daughter had a friend that she desperately wanted to still have daily contact with during the COVID lockdown, but her parents had very strong opposite vaccine opinions, so he solved the issue with his improv research. He knew that he couldn't in good conscience say yes and because it went against his core beliefs, so he used thank you because, and it saved a friendship for his daughter and made him feel better about the way that he acted in a potentially highly volatile situation. It was a way of still hearing the other person out and moving the situation forward. He said something like, thank you for loving your daughter so much that you are refusing to allow her to be vaccinated. I love my daughter so much that I made sure she was vaccinated. So we have that in common. I understand and appreciate that about you. Now what? I think that's a good point when yes and just won't work. I was trying to think about how that would work in a crazier situation, like when someone looks you dead in the eyes and says, I think all fat people should be executed. Some things are too cruel to be validated, and that would definitely be one of them. But in another situation, you could ask some follow-up questions as to why they believe that's a good idea, and then say something along the lines of, I appreciate that you would love to create a society that is prepared to rise to physical challenges that might arise in the event of a zombie apocalypse. I want that too. Is there a different way we could accomplish that? Okay, so while yes and is the number one principle of improv, if you were to ask any improviser the number one skill you need to succeed at improv, what they would tell you for sure is, any guesses? Ability to crack jokes, ability to think on your feet, charisma, stage presence, intelligence, charm. Nope, it's listening. Norm Laviolette says the skill of improv at its core is the ability to listen to other people and build off their ideas with the goal of getting to a place or idea that both parties have agreed to and feel ownership of. End quote. Listening. That's it. We did a ton of listening exercises in my class, and it really was eye-opening. I feel like I'm a good listener in general. If I'm in a group of people, I definitely listen way more than I talk, and I usually remember everything pretty well too. It's kind of natural to me, but I've also had hundreds of hours of coach training, so that helped too. We did an exercise where you had to repeat back what your scene partner said word for word before you added your next little bit to it. Then they repeated back your next little bit word for word and added their part. It was surprisingly challenging because when you're performing on stage, whether that's an improv stage or a metaphorical stage, which could just be a conversation with one person whose opinion you care about, you don't want to look stupid. So you're kind of formulating what you're going to say next or listening just to be able to respond in a creative way and not sound like you're coming from left field. Your mind is caught up in processing your next move. But if you can learn to fully just listen in order to be able to catch every detail, you develop the ability to put yourself and your wants in the background and just ride the flow of information. When you're skilled at putting yourself in the background, life becomes a lot less stressful. You can much more easily manage stressful situations if you're just there to fully hear the other person. You would never want to pay to watch an actual show where the improvisers repeat back word for word what the other person said every time. But I've heard some improv comedians say that if they're in a heated situation, a stressful situation, or even just a really boring situation, they will use their immediate playback skills to repeat in their head the exact words that the other person just said as a way of tapping into their superpower of being able to collaborate. Improv is all about being a team player and working together to make each other's ideas better. What I discovered through the immediate playback exercises was that it was so much less stressful and more fun to just be there in the moment, listening with full engagement to what the other person was saying, because that constant nagging worry about looking stupid or not being witty enough was completely gone. I was just fully there, listening to every detail. Because I was all in on what they were saying, I could 100% trust that what they said would give me enough to work with, and what I needed would just come. There was no pressure for me to be outlandish or off the wall or hilarious. I just had to know well enough to be able to repeat back word for word what they said, and then build just a little bit on top of it. Being a better listener helps you in all areas of your life and makes you appreciate different perspectives and worldviews, maybe even different medical or wellness views. Learning to listen without an agenda rewards you with better information that you can use to adjust your life. You might learn something new, or you might have your perspective expanded in a way that can finally shift something that you've been stuck on. Just like listening to your stage partner in a scene will give you everything you need to know to move forward, listening for the sake of listening in life can help give you enough information to move the scene of your life forward too. It removes the blocks of overthinking and racking your brain and worrying, and just lets you be present and receive. Practicing yes-anding in the ideation phase lets the creative ideas come to you. And practicing fully listening with your ego in the background lets the information you need come to you. It's pretty great. Another improv skill that helps you develop self-mastery is the skill of risk-taking. How are you at this one? All the personality tests I've ever taken over the years confirm what I already knew, which is that I tend to be pretty risk-averse. My heroic coach accountability partner and I had a conversation about this recently. I think I was born with a desire to avoid risks. In a lot of ways, it served me well, but one mastery item that I need to work on for sure is to get better at risk-taking. I don't even like to order something different at a restaurant because I don't want to run the risk that I might like it less than the other thing that I already know I like. It's totally natural to focus on self-preservation and avoid the possibility of catastrophe, like being rejected, falling short, or being humiliated in front of a group of people. The problem is that the only way to achieve anything great is to take a risk. Risk having people think you're weird because you're choosing different food options, refusing to participate in a gossipy conversation, or turning off your Wi-Fi at night. Improv is awesome because it requires some risk in the form of bold choices and just putting yourself out there in the first place. And the cool thing is that you're taking those risks alongside everyone else in the class who are also taking risks. So it doesn't feel so scary or out of place. It's par for the course while still helping you put in the risk reps to become braver. The fear of looking stupid is one of the biggest reasons we don't do what we really want to do in our life. So anything you can do to move past that fear will help deliver the life you really want to you. Norm Lavoliette says, "Risk is the electrical current that galvanizes our soul." I love that line. Galvanized steel is stronger and more resilient to weather damage and wear and tear. Taking risks makes you a stronger and more resilient person. In his book, Norm says that if you can get to a point where people judge and criticize your bold choices and you see that as an indication that you're on the right track, then you've really been galvanized. He says to never be ashamed of yourself for playing the game and that taking chances is always way more fun than just trying not to make a mistake. Risk averse as I am, I totally believe that. Trying to create something or achieve something is way more fun than just trying not to mess up. So, how do you improve your ability to take risks? Like everything else in the world, you gotta practice. Practice taking small risks. Look for opportunities to make some bold choices. Know ahead of time that people will probably judge you for your choice and gradually learn not to care. See if you can find or create an environment where taking risks is the norm. It could be an improv class, but it could also be a modern art class or a creative writing class or a CrossFit group or the Health Courage Collective community, hint, hint. Getting into an environment where experimenting is the standard is so helpful. Even better if risks and bold choices are required, like in improv where the scene can't move forward unless you make some bold choices. What can you think of that can help you get used to taking some risks and maybe even not caring about the judgments that might come along with those choices? Something that Phil Stutz talks about is that the way to live a better life is to run what he calls the instinct cycle. The instinct cycle is basically that when a decision point comes up, you trust your instincts and just make a decision as to what you think the best next step is. Then you immediately take action on that decision and are fully prepared to accept the consequences of that decision. Then you go through that process again. He says that success in life doesn't come from making the, quote, right decisions or taking a lot of time to deliberate, but from running that cycle as often as possible. He says the only way you'll be able to win is if you're willing to lose. That's the taking action and accepting the consequences part of your decision. Basically, don't spend so much time thinking. Decide, act, accept the consequences, and then decide again. Winning comes from running that cycle as often as possible because creativity comes from action, not from thinking. That all fits perfectly with running an improv scene. It's actually fun to be up there on stage and trust whatever comes to you. Make a choice, live with the consequences, and then make another choice. I was in a scene once where in order for the scene to move forward, I had to declare where we were based on my partner's movements. So I decided that we were in the girls' bathroom at school, which is not what she was expecting. And then we both had to live with the consequences of that choice, which actually made it way easier to decide what we were doing and why it mattered because we had an anchor point. I also had to live with her choices, like that she was a teacher and I was a student who was in trouble, which built upon my previous choices. And it all unfolded pretty effortlessly because we knew we had to go with our instinct, make a choice, act, and then live with the consequences, and then rinse and repeat. Something that goes hand in hand with taking risks is embracing mistakes. Everyone always says to embrace your mistakes, and it's nice and warm and fuzzy and a good idea. I just went to my son's 9th grade graduation, and the principal, who I really admire, gave a good, inspiring speech about middle school being a container in which to make mistakes And that's how you outgrow the container of middle school, is to make and learn from those mistakes. It sounds lovely, and it is, but the cool thing about improv is that it puts this into immediate and actual action. It's not just saying to embrace your mistakes, but really wishing you hadn't made them and doing everything you can to avoid them in the future. If you make a mistake in an improv scene, you can't pause or ask for a retake. As long as you don't get flustered and you stay in character, all mistakes are fine. When we were about to play an improv game where the audience was going to yell out accents that you had to speak with, our teacher told us this secret ahead of time. If you get your accent wrong, the audience will love you so much more for it. They'll think it's hilarious and you'll be their favorite person in the scene. In improv, you can make any mistake into a personality quirk or an unexpected event. You call your best friend the wrong name? Well, guess what? Your character's kind of a jerk. Or you sat on the chair where someone just put their cat? Well, you never liked it anyway. Or you prefer cats for seat cushions. There's often more. You get a fact or pop culture reference wrong, well, you're from outer space, or you have amnesia, or you reveal that the only subject in your homeschool was janitorial arts. It's all fine. Better than fine in a lot of cases because the humor is coming to you. That's so much easier. Do you remember my favorite researcher who I'm considering stalking? Ellen Langer from Harvard. She did a study where she had subjects give a speech. One group was primed with mistakes are bad by being warned not to make a mistake during their presentation. One group was primed with forgiveness and told that if they made a mistake, it would be okay. The third group was primed with what she called novelty and instructed to purposefully make a mistake during their presentation and then incorporate it as if it were supposed to be part of the speech in the first place. Her study ideas are so good. After their presentations, the participants in the novelty group reported being more comfortable while on stage and gave their own performances a better rating than members of the other two groups. The audience also judged presenters in the novelty group as being more intelligent and more effective. So even making mistakes on purpose can be valuable as long as you embrace them and make them part of your end goal. Ellen Langer says that worrying about mistakes prevents us from taking risks and being creative. The potential sting of mistakes can prevent us from living the lives we want. So wise. It's crazy but true, right? The potential for making a mistake that we haven't even made and might not ever make is what prevents us from living the life that we want to live. So if we want to push ourselves to live the life we want to live and become the person we want to become, one of the highest leverage things we can do is to learn to tolerate and embrace mistakes. We'll enjoy our own performance more, be more confident in our own abilities, and be seen as more intelligent and more effective. Pretty great, right? Robert B. Swastiner says, to not treat mistakes as though they are barely acceptable, but to embrace them as if they were your friends, and also gateways to creativity, confidence, and spontaneity. This tolerance to mistakes and alchemizing them into gateways to creativity, confidence, and spontaneity takes practice, like everything. The good news for me is that I make mistakes all day, every day. Yay! Lots of chances to see how they can give me more confidence and creativity. Putting yourself in a position to potentially fail frequently helps you grow like nothing else. It's one of the things I love most about kids. I teach kids at my church right now, but I've taught adults in the past, and I know that you could not get a room full of adults raising their hands and wiggling them for emphasis to try to throw a beanbag at a piece of paper, even if they have no idea what their beanbag throwing skills are, or raising their hand to name that tune, even if they don't know or they aren't sure they know. Kids have a lot higher tolerance for mistakes, and it makes me sad that we lose that as we get older. We can move the scene of our life forward with a lot more velocity and have more fun doing it if we held on to or recultivated that tolerance for mistakes and ability to embrace them as part of our journey. Something else Norm Lavalliette says in his book is that the spotlight and heightened emotions tend to make us think that this moment is more important than it really is. It's usually not that important, end quote. So true. So much of what we worry about isn't really that life-changing. Our ability to feel heightened emotions and still do what we're there to do anyway can take us a long way. There is so much to self-mastery and so much to improv that we could talk about. We didn't even get into the comedy aspects of juxtaposition, stakes, finding the game, or the other benefits of improv like improving communication skills, going with the flow, being authentically yourself, or being present in your body. Improv has also been proven to decrease anxiety and overthinking and obviously help with creativity and collaboration. I watched a TEDx talk by Galen Emanuel who said that improv is the art of making other people look good. And I love that. What a great skill to have. If you're criticizing someone else or their idea or the risk they're taking or saying no instead of yes or listening to respond rather than to hear, it's because you're trying to make yourself look good. Let's flip that around. One more thing I just love about improv is that it gives you the ability to tolerate uncertainty. We've come to expect a guarantee for so many things in life, but nothing's really ever guaranteed. We don't even know if we'll get it tomorrow or later on today. We can't be sure that everything will turn out the way we're expecting. To be truly self-masterful, we need to be able to adapt. In improv, nothing is known ahead of time, and the unknown becomes opportunity rather than a source of fear. In life, nothing is known ahead of time, and the unknown can become opportunity rather than a source of fear. And when it does, the world becomes alive with possibilities. The creativity, ideas, and joy start to come to us instead of us having to try to chase them down. Pretty fun. Thank you so much for being here today. As the world is changing, remember that the humor, creativity, emotional intelligence, and intuition required for improv are things that cannot be replicated by AI. And yes-anding, active listening, taking risks, and alchemizing mistakes can all help you with self-mastery on your quest to close the gap between who you're actually being and who you're capable of being, starting today. Next week, we're going to talk about unrecognized stressors and how they might be secretly weakening you. Until then, run your instinct cycle, make bold choices, and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.